Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our May 18th council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Could I have a motion to excuse Mr. Ball?
I'll make a motion, we excuse Mr. Ball.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval minutes of the regular meeting of May 4th, the special meeting of May 11th, and the special meeting of May 12th. Any additions or corrections? For the public, the two special meetings were our first two budget hearings. Those were the two special meetings.
Make a motion, we approve all three meetings, or minutes for the meeting.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Approval manifest 2015-09 in the amount of $502,147.30. Chris?
Just one question, page 12 underwater. Reimbursement for replacement of outdoor condenser for $2,200.
Was that from that, when they did the thawing, Joe?
Yes, that is the air conditioner. When we did the thawing job and we burned up the air conditioning unit.
Do we, I'm assuming we can't get that on insurance claim,
25,000 deductible.
and that's just in the hydro? Or is it-
No, that's not covered under our insurance policy.
That's all.
Okay, Dr. Hayes?
No questions.
Lee?
I got a few questions here. Page 1. New computer monitor, assessor's office, $217.96. Is this just a upgrade or something that puked on us?
No, it's an upgrade.
Upgrade?
Because of the amount of public that comes in. He works with the GIS system, and he's
Okay.
a bigger monitor.
And then under mayor, council elections, see all these prices here for the special election, the pay for the workers, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, the state called this election and we gotta pay for it? Do we get reimbursed from the state?
We are scheduled to get reimbursed, isn't that correct, Trish?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Page 2, maybe we haven't got to it yet, but I thought we were going to, on the sparkle cleaning janitorial services, we were gonna rebid that out. Was I having a daydream here? We haven't got to that in the budget yet, I don't think.
No, we didn't talk about rebidding it out. One of the things we talked about was possibly handling it in-house.
Oh, that's what it was, okay.
Yep, and then we had some meetings with the contractor, and they made some changes and wanted to, or asked us to allow them to see if they perform. So, Trish, you worked with them, so you handle that
They
contract.
made some changes to what they were doing and
Oh,
basically.
okay, that's two goodies. Halfway down in police department, the 2015 consultorium dues, 1 PT and 6 FT, what, $975, what is that?
Those are state dues that we have to pay on an annual basis,
But what's the 1 and the 6?
part-time and full-time.
Oh, okay, well, that makes sense too. I got a couple other items here. Under the general fund, page 4, Mid-America Research Chemical, 1, I assume dozen, I don't know, cutting and tapping FL 18 or 1BX urinals, 189, what's,
Those are replacements for the toilets for the Marion Park, the small
Okay,
bathroom.
okay, that's what I thought it was, I just wanted to clarify that. And let's see here. Oh, that's it.
Okay. I have no questions, so with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the manifest.
Make a motion, we approve manifest 2015-009, the amount of $502,147.30.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes. Oh, it's abstain from the GO-TEC charges.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or any agenda item? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Okay, first thing on our agenda this evening is appointments and presentations. Norway Area Planning Commission. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had, one of our members gave us an indication early in the year when we were going out for soliciting for interested residents that wanted to serve on all our boards, but he, from the Planning Commission, he gave us indication that he would be willing to step down if we had an interested resident that wanted to serve on this committee. His reason is that because of his class schedule, he goes to college, that he was not able to make most of the meetings. In fact, he hasn't been able to make any of the meetings, at least for this year. And so we have Ms. Lorna Flesher has put in her application. She had her application in early in the year. I remember if it was for Planning Commission or for one of the other boards, but she indicated that she would be willing to sit on the Planning Commission. So we'd like to move that forward tonight to accept Mr. Flanick's resignation. It's a verbal resignation, and appoint Lorna Flesher at the, on a Planning Commission to complete his term.
Make a motion, we accept the resignation of Mr. Flanick and appoint Lorna Flesher to the Norway Area Planning Commission.
Second?
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the approval IT Computer Annual Services Maintenance Agreement. As we go into this one for the discussion, Chris will not be representing the council. He'll be representing his company, GO-TEC, as one of the bidding parties. In fact, as the only party who bid on this. We posted it in the paper, we posted it in the Current and the Daily News both. And GO-TEC was the only bidder that we had responded. With that, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something we talked about early in the year. We decided to exercise our right through our contract with CyberZone to move and make some changes, explore other options for IT, computer support for the city. It has been a policy of ours for a long time to have a single contractor manage our IT needs, longer than I've been here. And over the years, we've had different companies that handle that. We did solicit proposal. We put together a request for proposal, and we solicited open market bids, proposals for this activity. And Mr. Gottstein's GO-TEC was the only company that did put in. We were a bit surprised. There are a couple of popular companies in the area, and I'm not sure why they didn't put in, but anyway, we reviewed Mr. Gottstein's proposal, and he met all of the qualifications. His proposal is for a monthly charge of $573, and this is in line with what we've budgeted and paid over the last number of years. We've had since the proposals came in, I did have some additional conversations with Chris about direction and where we're going, and feel comfortable that we're going to be well supported. We can solicit any questions if you have.
Your company's gonna be in business
Yes.
for the foreseeable future
For
here?
the foreseeable future and location in Norway, I have myself and then another tech who's full-time in my office that will be staying local in the area, and then I'll also be supporting as well. My living situation will be changing, but the business up here is staying solid and will continue to grow.
You've heard over the last number of meetings where we have been, we still needed to have support, and GoTech has been working with the city. Mr. Godstein has abstained from a number of votes in the manifest because of that support. The types of a lot of those charges, Chris can respond if I'm off base here, but the number of those charges that will be rolled into this 573 moving forward, we just did a time and material, if you remember, earlier in the year when we agreed to do this. So that's what this maintenance type arrangement would cover. It will not cover projects, so if we have a specific project that we're doing, that would be handled separately. We can look at bidding it. We won't bid the network, the labor, because our network engineer company should handle that. There are support, but equipment and how we handle equipment purchases and some other things, we can look at still bidding those out. And Chris and I have had a lengthy conversation over the last week or so, about that. We did talk about that during budget hearing as well, of how some of that can be handled as we move forward, because we do have some network needs, some hardware and software upgrades that are coming. So.
And I did include a fee schedule on projects in the RFP as well, so the city has an idea of what those charges will be. The agreement that I put together, it's not a contract, it's a month-to-month contract, so the city has the right to get out of that contract at any time. I'm not holding them to a one-year contract. I think I'll let our level of service dictate how far the contract goes. So it is month-to-month.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion that GoTech be approved to provide network and IT support for the city of Norway for a price not to exceed $573 per month.
I'll support. Motion made by Lee, supported by myself. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Abstain.
Okay, next on the agenda, approval City of Norway real estate sale policy. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this year, I actually did bring this policy to council. Council deferred at that time, to move on the policy. We spent some additional time looking at it and slightly modifying it, reformatting it to some extent, but with the latest discussions that we've had over the property by the spring, that request did go to Planning Commission and is ongoing at this time with the Planning Commission. I just thought it was proper to bring this back, prudent to bring it back for council to, again, reevaluate and either pass it, deny it, or make some changes, request that we table it to make changes. Again, the policy is it's pretty straightforward, self-explanatory on how to handle, requests, unsolicited requests for properties that are currently not on the property for sale list, the approved property for sale list. We still have that as part of the policy. The way the council, they have the list and properties that are properly reviewed, and they go on the list, and then people can come up and, if they want to choose to purchase a property, they can. This policy would be for properties that are not on the list, maybe larger properties that haven't been through the planning stage yet, for whatever reason, are not on the approved list. So, I guess I can entertain any questions you might have, on this policy, and, or your pleasure on what you'd like to, how you'd like to proceed. I did go through this with the city attorney in great detail, so.
In going through and looking, one thing I know we had talked about was having it go to planning commission. I don't see that in here, that it's a requirement that it'll go to planning commission. There's a spot where it says the council can refer it to staff or to manager, staff, or attorney, but I don't see any requirement of it going to planning commission.
Okay, we can have that as a definite requirement.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on the property involved. But
I know,
don't see-
that was something that we had discussed, was wanting it to go to planning commission. But I would agree that it can be on a case-by-case basis. I'm just bringing up that was something we had discussed, that I didn't see in there.
The way the policy is, the intent and the way the policy is written, individual, corporation, private entity would come with their request directly to the council. Council, at the time they hear the request, it would be new to the staff as well. There would be no not much disposition, I guess. And the council can, at that point, add direction.
Okay,
It can be a mandatory if you would like it to. But there I can't foresee what types of properties would or wouldn't fall in that. But, there may be a situation where you say, well, this is what we need to do, so we'll return it, just go to staff, get this cleaned up, and you can come back to the council
Okay.
rather than bring it to the planning commission.
Is it appropriate for it to come to council first versus getting reviewed by staff and then having a discussion, having a review or a overview of it so we can look at it prior to a meeting?
Yeah, we had some thought about that, and the reason that we're requesting this policy is that both the planning commission, the staff and the planning commission have been criticized in the past for holding up, blocking requests to the council, and that certain petitioners wanted their proposal to go right to council. This would alleviate that, and people would see that, okay, we're gonna come to council, but unless, for whatever reason, you decide to pass it, they know that there's a whole process in order, it spells out that process. The other way, it does make sense, we know that most of them are gonna go that direction anyway. It's just that the petitioners feel that they're missing their due process by coming to council. And we're holding it up, and we're not holding it up. It's just that, if they give us an unrealistically low number, we try to tell them, it's not gonna pass, it's just not appropriate. But it's really not our job to block it, and
Are we giving the petitioners the choice then to either come to council directly or go through staff? If petitioner is okay with bringing the proposal to staff and having you review it and then bring it to council versus forcing them to come to council and petition?
That could be part of the language, that they have the right to come here and be told to go to planning commission, basically, or they can.
well, that's kind of the way that, letter D of the private initiated, that's kind of what it says, is they'll come here, and then the council has 60 days to review. In that time, they can tell them, you're going to planning commission. So that's kind of how it's written now, but they would have to come here first. I would think most of the property purchases, though, end up going through staff first, as they're gathering information on the lot, or,
Well, they will come to staff first, we have a form that they fill out, so they make their request. We usually, ask them to give us some information, to come to you. And I guess at that point, if we wanted to have, I guess it's up to council, you know, there might be some petitioners that would rather go through the whole process. I think maybe by coming to council first, if it is just absolutely a dead issue before, you know, you don't go to planning commission and you don't go through all the steps before, you know, before your council just says this is not gonna work. You know, maybe that initiates them to either give a higher bid or make changes to their proposal when it does go to planning commission. Because, you know, we've seen some proposals that are just not realistic, and
I don't wanna hold the process up if they have to first come to council for a meeting, which only happens, you know, twice a month, and then we say, okay, now we're gonna push it off to planning commission, which, depending on the timing, may be another month off, where if they just wanted to go directly to planning commission, they get the process started.
the longest they'll wait the planning commission is really 2 weeks, because if our first meeting, it's only 2 days, we can get it onto that agenda. The planning commission more than likely is gonna be the one to say, we're gonna defer it for another 30 days so we have a chance to review it. I think, based on my experience in dealing with petitioners on these types of requests, if there's a moving forward of some sort, then I think that they're a little more amenable to, or amenable to the delays. It's not just
Sure.
artificial delays.
Okay.
Well, it seems like a relatively slow process, but rather be safe than sorry. Just on page 3, in the middle of section F, as far as I'm concerned, the city may also include a reverter clause. I want it to say the city must include a reverter clause, because in the past, we all know, because of a little glitches in the system, we've been fried on it big time. Otherwise, I think we're way overdue for this.
And again, this would not include land that is already listed for sale.
Correct.
Most people just have to pay the purchase price and agree to the terms of the sale, which generally means that you have to put a building on the property.
Correct, within 2 years. And if they can come back to council then, if there's some extenuating circumstance, we've seen it and approved extensions based on market. You know, if they've got a large project, we've done that. And that's totally appropriate, but you have to make that decision. No one else can make that decision.
And we do have the reverter clause on all the properties that are for sale, right? I believe it's 2 years they have to
Yes.
build it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments?
Is it council's pleasure to have it mandatory for planning commission, or is the language okay the way it's written?
I'm okay with the way it's written, but I just wanted to make sure that was brought up, because that had been something we discussed.
Yeah. I'm okay with that too, Ray. It's just I said I want to see there must be a reverter clause in there.
Sure.
Shall.
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 Shall be, okay. English wasn't my strong point.
I'll make a motion that we approve the real estate policy with the changes recommended by Lee.
I'll support. Motion made by Chris, supported by myself. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Resolution, request for vacating right-of-way for John Beck. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If everybody's familiar where Beck's Ornamental and Turf is located off of US 2, there is an alley that runs between his parcels. He purchased property from the Bill Nelson Trust. There's no railroad right-of-way grade right directly across from the alley. And over the last couple of years, he's been talking with the Planning Commission and the city about a project on that parcel. Recently, we've had some conversations about, especially with the Family Dollar coming in and the issues on the curve, where he was requesting consideration for vacating that section of the alley between those two parcels, there's not an access effect on the city operations because that alley, it actually, it's not really a T, it's an angled T, I guess is what you'd call it, so that we can still come through, make the turn and back out to Ninth. There is an issue with the highway department on the on-off in that area. Access management has some issues, site distance issues, and also there's a drainage issue at that area. And I don't have the, there's no official project from Mr. Beck, but he's actually indicated that he might be interested in actually closing that because he gets a lot of highway drainage off of that because he's downhill off of that area. Under the rules of vacating public right-of-way, I listed them out. The first is the request needs to be brought to council, similar to our new policy for buying regular property. Council, it's misleading adopting a resolution. What they actually do is that we provide you a sample resolution or the resolution that we plan to use for the vacating, and we would like, we have to post that resolution. We advertise it in the paper, and then what we do is you go through these steps. It gets posted, it has to have a public hearing back here at City Hall. What I'd like to do with this one, if council agrees to move forward and direct us to publish and organize a public hearing, is that we would then go through the same process with the Planning Commission and, have a full plan worked up with Mr. Beck. We'd also, I'm also requesting that we don't hold a public hearing until the first meeting in July. We have a lot of budget activities that go on in June, and plus this particular activity, you're going to have the letters going out to the residents. You want to have a full disclosure and communications because this is an access area. We have utilities that run along the alley. Currently, that would all be maintained in easement. In fact, the city actually owns a strip that we ended up swapping with Mr. Beck. If you remember, it was about a year or so ago, where we had an old railroad designation 17 foot with a very loose definition of location. So what we did with him is he agreed to deed over the 17 feet along the alley right-of-way edge. That would be where our utilities were running, or are running. So I think from a utility standpoint, from access standpoint, that it at least merits moving forward with the process to further investigate it, and possibly could be good for his development and for some of the issues on the city on access on the highway.
Well, I'm very familiar with that area, and I've actually used that alley a couple times, and it's not a smart move on my part, but that's probably going to hurt his employees more than anybody because their trucks are in and out of there, and that's not really the best, but that sounds like a good idea to vacate it. And the only other question, Ray, this overlay of the property lines here, is that accurate? Because I see that coming through the alley, the north line there, it's actually clipping off two garages. And I mean, that one garage has been there for 80 years.
Yeah, that's not unusual.
Could that be off a little bit, or?
It could be off a little bit.
Because I know where the corner post is there, and it might be off.
I think it's pretty close if it's not right on the property line. It's pretty close. That you're talking about the properties just to the north.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would stay. That alley, of course, would stay. We're just talking about the section down by his garage. But
I just happened to notice the overlay here, and I didn't realize that. As far as I was concerned, that garage on the west side there, that was right on the property line.
Yeah,
But according to this, it's on it by about 4 feet, 4 feet. But like I said, that garage has been there for 80 years.
yeah, it could be. The lines could be slightly off. But
I see, again, the wheels roll slow because you got it dated here, February 6th, this request. Take that long to work its way through the system?
took that long for him to hand it in.
Okay.
We handed it to him early this year.
Okay.
And I think
But he
filled it out.
he
but
didn't pay till May.
That's right.
Okay.
If you
Yeah,
notice
well,
when
that's when he
paid.
brought it back with me.
Oh, is that what, oh, okay.
We've been talking to him for a couple of years. When he started with his development plan, Planning Commission actually approved a commercial site plan for him. Gosh, it was probably last year.
Yeah, I remember going through that, yeah.
Yeah, and I know he started talking at that time, and so it's just, he's busy, he's in and out of the area and working, and so I've been, trying to, if he wanted to do it, I encouraged him to try and put the paperwork in, and so I was happy to see that he did put the paperwork in, so we could at least go through the process.
You don't think there's any problem with cutting off the access of that alley with that? I've used that alley myself, just to go down to the feed mill.
Off the highway?
Yeah. Coming out of Loft Homes.
Yeah.
When I get to the feed mill, that's the closest way.
It is the closest way. I'm not, I mean, that's all personal preference, I would imagine. I know under access management, those are the types of intersections, I know MDOT has talked about. Those are problematic intersections.
So the-
Not going in, but
So
coming
the
out.
state would like to get rid of that access
The
anyway.
state would, yeah.
Surely would.
And then the other question I had was, those two alleys, that Y on the back, it's gonna be very difficult for any kind of a vehicle to make that corner and stay in the alley. If you're coming down one alley and going out the other, that's a fairly sharp corner for
Well,
most vehicles.
one thing I can tell you is that the initial description that I gave is just basically straight lines. I just cut that across. Those are types of questions, and they're really good questions, and they're types of issues or details that we work out in the process. Because we have to be able to navigate, people have to navigate that corner. And so if we have to move that south line in order to be able to handle that, then that's what we'll have to do.
So John owns the property on both sides of the vacating? Because otherwise,
Yes.
the vacating is...
Yes, he owns both sides.
Okay.
But he doesn't own that triangle piece that was concerned about. This piece here he doesn't own.
He does not own that.
Okay. So what would you need from the council?
Just approval to schedule for public hearing on the process, and then over the next 60 to 80 days, or 40 to 60 days, we'll be moving through the process. Actually, I schedule it for July, what's that first meeting, July 3rd?
Sixth.
Or 6th, yeah. That's a date I would schedule for the public hearing. So we would have council meeting, or a planning commission meeting during that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you need a motion, public hearing be scheduled to hear the matter?
Yep.
Second.
That'd be good.
Make the motion then.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Next on the agenda, we have approval, computer network upgrades. Again, on this one, because Mr. Gottstein is the one putting the proposal for us, he'll be representing GoTech in this matter, not the council. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular proposal was something that we put together over the last few weeks, mainly because we have been working on network discussions on network upgrades for both, our system and also our phone system. We feel like we need to move forward with making some improvements. And during our budget hearing, through our conversation, we talked about, having this scheduled, budgeted for the next fiscal year. However, we do have ability to move this project up into June from the purchasing standpoint. And so we decided to bring this to council tonight to see if we could move forward with approval. We also talked at the time about we weren't going to bid out the labor portion because obviously the first approval you had with the service maintenance agreement, we have GoTech as our network engineering firm, our network engineer, managing our network. So you wouldn't bring another firm in to handle the network upgrade, but we did talk about bidding out the equipment. In our discussions, it was apparent that we could actually purchase the equipment ourselves. We have CDWG accounts. We're probably not gonna get better pricing than those accounts, those government accounts. And so what we would like to do is have the city purchase the equipment under Mr. Gottstein's direction, and then his company can install the equipment and the software. The pricing that I gave you is actually for a full project, so this is a worst-case scenario. I did not have, or I just received some pricing from Chris on the CDWG bids or quotes, and it looks like we'd probably save about maybe $10,000 to $15,000 total.
And there'll
Off
be
the
more,
price.
I think there's gonna be more once I get the server
Yeah.
quotes back from them.
But we don't have the exact number, so what we decided to do, or what I decided to do, is just give you the total right now for what proposal we have, and then we'll do a not to exceed, we'll do a time and material on, so the equipment will come out of that, and we'll get whatever best pricing we can on the equipment, buying direct.
I think with the server and with the network upgrades, we need to get on those before next budget year, because we have the North Star billing and the BSNA upgrades that we're doing, and that we've already approved that are moving forward. And those, especially the BSNA one, will push our system right to the limit, and it may push our system over the limit. That's gonna be happening in the beginning of July. So I think it's better if we, this year, move ahead rather than hold off till next year, next budget year. This way it'll be ready to go when that system comes in.
And I can comment a little more on what Ray was saying with CDWG. And the reason that we're looking at CDWG for the equipment is that they can get state contract pricing. So most of the states have a direct contract with hardware vendors for government purchasing, stuff that I can't access directly, but CDWG can on the city's behalf. So they can get pricing on equipment that I can't even remotely touch. The other thing that we're doing with this is that with the bids we're getting from, and the quotes we're getting from CDWG, comparing that to what I can purchase equipment for and choosing the lower cost. So if CDWG comes back and says this particular item is gonna be $100 or $200 more than what I can sell to the city for, then they'll purchase it through GoTech versus CDWG. So you're gonna be getting the best price based on what I'm quoting and what CDWG is quoting. And then all the upgrades that we're talking about in here came from that documentation project that the council approved, I believe 2 months ago. As we were going through the documentation process and inventorying and cataloging all the devices in the network, we were also taking notes on improvements that need to be made, weaknesses that we saw, and those are incorporated into the upgrades that you see in the quotes here.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Well, when it comes to internet stuff and computers and that, I'm the last one in line, so I've got to go along with you say, Jeremy, and Chris over there.
We do have an option 1 and an option 2, if you want to explain that, Chris.
So the two options on the server upgrade, the less expensive option, which is about $20,000 less, upgrades the server with basically a same type of setup, a single server setup, but it's just going to be a much larger capacity server than what you currently have. The plus side to that is it's less cost up front to purchase that single server versus the other option, which I'll explain. But the downside to it is when that server needs to be replaced or upgraded, you have to replace the entire system with another system that costs probably the same amount of money. The second option basically splits the server and the storage, which would be the data that's actually stored on the network into two separate systems, so that if we start running out of storage, we can upgrade just the storage portion of it. If we run out of processing power, we can just add another server to that storage unit. So now you have the ability to modularly upgrade the system versus ripping out and replacing everything. So your lifespan on that separate system is going to be a lot greater than what you have on a single system. There's also more redundancy built into it. We can easily add on to it. It's a good base to build off of versus having a single server that you're constantly replacing every 3 to 5 years.
Well, and if something with the single server, if something went, you're replacing the whole thing.
You're replacing the whole thing.
With the other one, if the server went, you'd only have to replace that
You
portion.
just
of it.
replace the server, yeah, or part of the server. If in the future we wanted additional redundancy, we could actually add 2 servers so that if one server failed, you have a backup that would automatically take over. So your options for redundancy are tenfold of what you would have with a single server setup.
You can't predict the future, but do you have any idea? Is there any way to project the life expectancy of equipment like this?
You know, typical industry standard is 3 to 5 years in the business environment. Usually in the government educational environments, you see it pushed out 5 to 8 years. I have installed this very similar system over at the school district in Niagara, and that was almost 5 years ago, and we're just now starting to upgrade that system. We're not replacing servers, we're not replacing any hardware, but we're adding more capacity to that system. So they're still working off the original hardware that we purchased, but now we're adding capacity to that system. So I would say you can probably get a good 8 years out of that system, without having to physically replace, one of the main boxes. The other plus side to it is that you don't have to replace, again, the entire system over the course of 8 years. If 3 years down the road we have to upgrade the server, you're just upgrading the server and your storage stays in place and the costs are a lot less. So you start spreading your cost out over the course of those 8 to 10 years that you have that system in place. And you can kind of stagger those upgrades versus ripping out and replacing everything you have.
It's probably not just the equipment cost, but also labor cost too.
And labor costs as well, yeah. Yeah, because if right now with a single server, when you replace that server, you're rebuilding everything from scratch. With this type of modular system, we can actually move the servers in about 30 seconds over to the new system, and it's back up and running. And there's almost no downtime.
What do you recommend, Mr. Anderson?
I recommend the option 1 because of the ability to add on to it.
I thought that was option 2.
No, option 1 was the server and storage upgrade where you have.
I'm sorry, I got them backwards. That was my.
You got them
I got
backwards.
them backwards.
The initial cost is higher, but the return down the road, the cost down the road will be less and more. What I've seen as we moved along here since I've been here is that these scalable type systems work the best because you're able to replace components as opposed to if you have to do a total rebuild, that's downtime for the staff, that's downtime for, it's a lot more costly on the labor side, and that's.
And there is money in the budget for this?
There is money in the budget for this year, yes, up to June 30th. We had money appropriated for next year, just that because of the need, we pulled it forward because we had the capacity to buy that in June, buy the system in June.
And I think we can substantially cut that not to exceed number down with the state contract pricing that we're getting through CDWG. So,
I think Jeremy ought to make the motion.
Okay, I can do that. I'll make a motion that we approve GoTech for server and storage upgrade option 1, network and firewall upgrade, phone system upgrade for a price not to exceed $86,000.
Support.
Motion made by myself, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
abstain?
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, the last thing we have on the agenda this evening is fire department purchase request. This is for 8 air cylinders and a new thermal imaging camera. David Ball from the fire department is here, and he'd like to come up and present his request.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Henderson. I put a packet together for what the prices are going to be for a new thermal imaging camera. Our current camera is over 20+ years. They do not manufacture parts for that camera anymore. So the manufacturer with MSA have us a special price quote with a new model which is half the size of our current operations one, because we received one of the first ones on the market when it came out. The new one is going to be equipped that we put it right in our fire truck, mounted in, 2 batteries in the truck, charging all the time. We'll have extra batteries, everything on the truck, does not have the fire hall anymore, so that makes it a lot easier for our personnel to grab out of the truck, use it. We use the current camera, steady. Any fire, any smoke-related incidents in the house, you take your thermal camera in, you sweep the house with the camera if you see any hot spots. They cannot make any more parts. They said, forget it. They sent it back. They don't even want to take it in. So that's why we're looking for a new thermal image camera. We have the current one. It glitches. It quits. It doesn't want it. And the batteries, they do not manufacture for that model anymore.
I realize it's a very important piece of equipment, Dave, but just out of curiosity, what'd you pay for the first one? Do you remember?
First one we paid $25,000 for.
Was that much? I knew it was expensive, but I couldn't,
And
so as
this model
things
we're-
proceed, they get
Yes.
cheaper and cheaper,
And
not,
this model that you're looking at right here at the price at $6,095, we're getting $3,200 savings. The manufacturer had bought 20 units for MSA in March and put a sale price on them and been selling them. They have 4 current units left and they're giving us at that sale price for March. So we're saving $3,200 on this unit. Also be $9,300 and $400
Okay.
for that unit.
I'm not nitpicking here, but I see a little discrepancy here. The one letter from Ray said, the city has owned and operated a camera since 2001, and you're saying it's 20 years old. The math doesn't work out right.
Well, the camera was,
We purchased a camera prior to that. We moved into the fire hall in 2001 into our new facility. We had a camera at the old city hall here at that time, so we had that camera probably, I would say at least 1996, 94,
Okay.
something like that.
I
We bought that.
Notice the difference in years here. It kind of jumped out at me, that's all.
Yes, yes. And we have that kind of service, and this new one, if we get this model, it costs us $35 for another unit that will be shipped to us. We shipped our unit in, and we have a rental for $35 if ours fails. And that's guaranteed for 5 years on the unit, so. And then the other item on your agenda is this air bottle cylinders for the air packs. The air bottles that we have are the new composite bottles. The composite bottles are lightweight tanks. They're just woven fiberglass. The FDA says in 15 years of service life, that bottle is no more good to refill. Expand and contract with heat. NFPA standard is not set for the volunteer fire departments. It's set for the full-time fire departments. So they refill their tanks, more usage, more opportunities in bigger cities. So that's what our mandate is from them. 15 years, that tank is not supposed to be refilled by anybody whatsoever. It could fail upon pressurizing it, explode, so it could explode. So that's what we ran into. We received the grant, and we are pushing 15 years on this grant, and our new air packs. Those bottles are all composite bottles. We got them at one time. We're trying to now break that down to an 8-year plan, or, no, excuse me, 8 bottles a year for the next 3 to 4 years. And then we won't have that many when it comes to 15-year period. Can we say, okay, these 8 are gonna be gone, we can purchase it at that time and break it down. Right now, we have no breakdown, so our bottles are gonna be all coming due soon, so that's the problem with what we currently have.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion? Sure. I'll make a motion that the purchase of the thermal imaging camera and 8 cylinders, 5-alarm fire and safety equipment LLC be approved for a price not to exceed $14,400.
Second?
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
And that's our business this evening. Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on any subject? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Okay, Lee.
Last council meeting, I mentioned an article I had read in the paper about the smart meters, and I guess we've gotten a lot of comments on it, and there's quite a bit of data here in our executive memorandum, and the bottom line is there is no scientific data where these smart meters cause brain cancer. You'll pick up cancer quicker from cell phones than when you will from these things. That's all I have to say. But it was an interesting article.
Dr. Hayes.
A couple of meetings ago, I made some comments, and it was my understanding that a number of people approached me and said they can't understand me at the meetings. My voice isn't loud to speak up. Now we got the microphones fixed, so I was just going to repeat some of that. I wanted to see a sidewalk along the south side of US 2 going past the businesses, up to the churches, up to the museum. And I think we should work with the DDA on getting that accomplished. I also wanted to see the city apply for a grant to get fencing around our pits. The mine inspector has mandated that we fence our pits. I think that we ought to get a grant for that and make that part of our trail system, turn that Norway Hill into an area that can be recreated in, and then have the trails up there along the fencing as part of that. There's some beautiful areas up there. I also thought we should seek a grant from the state and work with the township on putting a trail down to our new state park, extending from Marion Park, where it goes now, all the way out to the state park. And that would help the local people to get out there. It'll also help the businesses and allow people to get from the state park back to the city. Hopefully we'll see some camping out there in the next year. And I was also looking to work with the state and the county to help build a trail from Vulcan along US 2 as part of the state trail up to the other side of the county, up towards Quinnipiac and even Iron Mountain. So I think we need to work with all the leadership in the city and try to get these things done. I think they're important things. Tourism is going to be a bigger and bigger part of our economy. I think we're a beautiful area. I think Vulcan ought to work with its name as the Starship Enterprise and other themes, and I think the city of Norway with its Scandinavian name ought to work with that. I think we need to build our tourist infrastructure, and that will improve the community for everyone who lives here. I also made a comment at that time that inactivity has replaced smoking as the #1 cause of premature disease and death in this country, partly because less people are smoking, but just to encourage people to get more activity. So that's my first comment. My second comment is that it's my understanding from the rest of the council at our budget meetings that there is no money available for roads this year. Yet money has to come from someplace, either has to come from taxes or utilities, or otherwise the state, there's not going to be any grants for local roads. We have to build our own roads. Also, a year ago, I strongly urged the council to, instead of giving rebates to our customers for high water, that we take that money and put it into our roads. And it turns out that the 1 cent that we did put on the floor would have netted us $250,000 for the roads. Now, I certainly like to pay less for utilities, but still, that money could have been used for road projects this year. We still hear a lot of complaints, although less than in the past, for fixing up our roads. I don't see any other way we're going to get it other than increasing our taxes. So I'd like to make the motion that we take the 1 cent of the PCAC fund. If there's any money this year, we don't know. We had good water last year, but take that money and put it towards roads instead of rebating it to our customers.
But then we should be lowering our rates, because that piece, the rate we set up when we set up the PCAC, was based on generating 1 megawatt. And that it would, if we had better water, the rate would go down. If we had worse water, it would go up. So that rate is artificially set high because it will go down because of the PCAC. So we should be lowering the rate from the beginning then to account for that, for average water, not low water, which will use up that 1 cent or more. So it makes it, the PCA, the rate, like I said, the rate was set for bad water, not for average water. We should be setting our rate for average water if we're gonna do that. If we're gonna get rid of the PCAC, we should be setting our rate for average water, which will drop the rate.
Well, I still made a motion. I don't expect to hear a second, but I just wanted it in the minutes that that's what I feel, and I still feel it even with those comments.
Okay. With your first comment, have we heard any more from the DNR on if they had any more meetings on what's going on with the Pierce Gorge Park?
I have not.
Okay. I haven't heard any of them having, I know they had that one here and then they had one in Faithhorn. But I haven't heard of anything since, where they were gonna kind of explain, get public feedback and explain what they were doing. Okay. Any other comments, Dr. Hayes?
No, that's
Okay,
it.
Chris?
Nothing tonight?
I have nothing. Joe?
No, I have no comments.
Mary? Tricia? Ray?
I want to thank Lorna for willing to serve.
Need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.